Before we get started with this week's episode, I want to say a quick thank you to this week's newest Patreon supporters, Andy and Ryan Robertson. Thank you for your contributions. Your support makes this show possible. To become a supporter of the Seattle Files, go to patreon.com/the Seattle Files. Now on with this week's episode.
Now that I'm used to the climate, I think that if man ever found a place to live easy and happy, that Eden is on Puget Sound. Eden is on Puget Sound. That Eden is on Puget Sound. A place to live easy and happy. That Eden is on Puget Sound.
Hello, you are listening to the Seattle Files. My name is Chris Allen, I'm your host. On each episode of this show, I get together with a different local comedian, and together we discuss these strange, unusual, interesting, and oftentimes lesser-known aspects of our local history. Joining me today in the program is Mike Schubert. How's it going, Mike?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Mike is a recent transplant to the Seattle area. He is an improviser about town. He performs with Comedy Sports Seattle, and he is also the host of the podcast Potterless. You want to tell us a little bit about Potterless?
Yeah, so basically, I'm a 25-year-old man that had never read Harry Potter until a couple months ago, and the podcast Potterless just documents that. So every episode is me going through a couple chapters at a time, from start to finish of the whole series, and I always talk with Harry Potter experts, so people that are either super fans or people that work for companies that do stuff with Harry Potter, like Mischief Management, stuff like that. And it's basically me just kind of going at it without rose-tinted glasses. Since I have no nostalgia, I'm not afraid to be like, hey, why didn't you send the kids home when Sirius Black, a convicted murderer, was found on campus? So just kind of being able to poke fun at the series, but also analyze it, give it praise.
Yeah.
It's a fun time. It's just a comedic, lighthearted approach by someone who is analyzing a children's novel critically as an adult.
Cool. Where can people find that?
Any of the major podcasting apps. If you just search Potterless Podcast, you're good to go.
Awesome. So if you like Harry Potter, and statistically you do, if you are an adult person listening to a show, you like Harry Potter, you should check it out. It's a great show. I highly recommend it. How long have you lived in the Pacific Northwest?
So I've been here in Seattle since September.
Yeah, very recent.
Yeah,
right?
so like 9 months-ish. And then I also did 6 months in Berkeley, California, if that counts as Pacific Northwest.
No. not at all. Not at all.
Okay, so yes, I'm very recent. I am not very well versed in Seattle history, so I think this will be a
cool.
fun learning experience.
Well, that's the next question: is how much do you know about the local history around here?
Let's see. A lot about the Supersonics, because growing up as a kid, I was like, that's such a cool name. I don't know what it means.
Cool.
Detlef Schrempf is a funny word. So I liked the Sonics as a kid, so I'm very well versed in their downfall and moved to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And then, so sports probably would be the most knowledgeable, but I really don't know too much about the city. I feel like I've heard people say things like, oh, we're going to die in a giant earthquake.
Yep, that's going to happen.
And we're built on trash and all this other stuff.
Oh, that's true as well.
So that's
You're farther than you think.
Okay, great. I'm almost
Incidentally, I used to work for Jack Sikma. Indirectly. He owned the restaurant that I worked at, Ray's out in Ballard, for a long time. So, yeah. Cool. So, awesome. Let's go ahead and get started then. Awesome. John Turnow was born. He was born September 4th, 1870, on the Satsop River between the small towns of Matlock and Brady near the Wynoochee River on the Olympic Peninsula. So the area that we're talking about is, you know where Olympia is, down to the south of us. Yeah, down at the south part of Puget Sound. Between Olympia and Grays Harbor out on the coast, somewhere in between there is the area that we're talking about.
Okay.
If you take a direct line and drive the highway from Olympia to the coast, in there.
So like close to the national park?
Yeah, it's close to Grays Harbor. It's closer to the coast than it is to Olympia.
Okay.
But it's kind of the southern part of the Olympic Peninsula is where this is. John's parents, Fritz and Louisa, bought a 320-acre homestead there a few years before, and he was born into a family of 6 children. Okay. So homesteading out on the frontier.
320 acres.
320 acres.
Enormous.
That's half a square mile.
Wow.
Yeah, big chunk of land. 2 of his siblings died at a young age, and at age 10, John himself contracted black measles and nearly died.
Do you know what the difference between regular measles and black measles is?
Color.
Okay.
No, I don't know. I think black measles was a kind of measles.
Like, it sounds like a worse version.
Yeah, it sounds like, is it measles? No, it's black measles.
Ah!
Yeah. No, I don't actually know the difference between regular measles and black measles, but I don't also know what regular measles are really like either. So
yeah, it's not good.
Not good, yeah. Especially not, in the 1880s.
No,
you don't want that.
Of course not.
Though he survived the illness, there was concern that the high fevers might have caused permanent brain damage. After his illness, his mother showered him with attention, which caused his brother Ed to become extremely jealous. Okay. Little family discord there.
Sure.
Living in the frontier wilderness of the Olympic Peninsula, his father taught him and his brothers how to hunt, fish, and live off the land. Turnow attended school, but was known to be exceptionally shy and didn't have any friends. Okay. He also had a lisp that other children mocked him for. And he began to spend long periods of time by himself in the woods, inseparable from his dog Cougar.
I just like dogs named other animals.
Yeah,
it's
great.
A fun one. I had a neighbor with a dog named Kitty, which I thought was like a bit insulting, but Cougar the dog is good.
That's true. That's dismissive of your dog. Or, doesn't show the proper respect.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the time he was 12, he was adept at hunting and preparing wild game, making clothes out of animal hides, and making shoes from bark.
Okay, so did they have a house?
They had a house, yeah.
But they still really liked to just roughing it?
He did.
Okay.
He liked going out in the woods.
Okay, that was his deal.
He did not like civilization. He did not want to be around people at all.
And he decided this at age 12.
At about age 12, yeah.
I feel like at age 12, all I was thinking about was sports and video games.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not my disdain for human interaction.
I was way into The Legend of Zelda. Although that is kind of a disdain for human interaction. Yeah. We were going into digital forests instead of the real forests. Yeah.
Valid.
So he's learning to live off the land, and at a very young age it is said that, quote, he could plug a snuff box with a rifle at 100 yards and take down a deer with a single precise shot to the heart.
Wow.
So he's a good rifleman at 12.
God.
Yeah. He would spend weeks at a time alone in the woods, and his family became concerned about his antisocial behavior.
I was going to say, was his parents cool with that? They're just like, hang out in the backyard for a month, honey.
Yeah, that's for a 12-year-old to do that, that's problematic.
Yeah.
He was committed to a private sanitarium, and from there he was transferred to a state institution in Oregon in 1909, where he jumped over a 10-foot wall and escaped.
Jumped over it?
Well, he would have jumped and ascended. Okay. He was a tall guy. He was over 6 feet tall, so he probably would have jumped, and he didn't clear it like a hurdle.
I was like, this dude's in the X-Men.
Yeah. Well, he spent all that time in the woods.
I mean, true. Living off the land, maybe his great thighs.
Yeah, probably. There have been some disputes of this claim, and some modern historians feel that he was not actually committed, but instead simply disappeared into the woods for such long periods of time that rumors circulated he had been committed. Okay. So they're not able to find the actual records from the sanatorium that he was, any of the sanatoriums saying they have records of him being there. Okay. That might be a records thing, or it might be that it was just a rumor that grew and grew and grew. Yeah. Nobody really knows for sure.
Rumors back then were a big deal, because I grew up in New Jersey, and the Jersey Devil is a long-established folklore. And reading back on the history, it's like the story is so outlandish. But in the 1800s, people are like, "This is a true fact. This thing exists."
Do kids on the schoolyard still think the Jersey Devil is a real thing?
I don't know. I would guess not. I remember me growing up; it was never like, "Oh, let's go check it out." I feel like even at, I was born in 92, and I feel like in the late 90s, early 2000s, even we knew it was kind of fake. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know, maybe kids are still rambunctious and go check it out.
Kids do believe in that. I was very surprised, because you know about Slender Man?
Yes, from the video game, right?
Yeah, well, it's from...
it was like a drawing, and it became a video game.
Yeah, well, it's I don't know if it's about a video... There might have been like a fan-made video game, but it was a thing that... there's a creepypasta, which is online, like, amateur horror stuff that people write. And then you submit your amateur horror writings and people or images or whatever, and then people exchange them and pass them around. But a guy created this thing, a character called Slender Man, and it grew and grew and grew and spread and spread. And there was a horrible incident in I think it was Wisconsin, where two young girls stabbed their friend because they thought Slender Man was telling them to. There's a fascinating documentary about that called Beware the Slender Man. Okay. But I had a couple kids on a tour a while back, and they were all like, Slender Man, he's real. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Slender Man's real. Slender Man's not real. Yeah, Slender Man's real. I saw him. And these kids really believed in Slender Man.
Wow.
They really...
Okay, maybe I was just a smart kid.
Maybe you were, yeah. So I give you credit. I don't know about the Jersey Devil, but even in our modern age of mass communication, kids still believe in that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
maybe he'll make a comeback.
The Jersey Devil?
Yeah, I hope. I hope not, because it's a really silly myth. The brief version is it was this old lady had her 13th child, and when she was pregnant, she was like, "This kid's gonna be cursed," and then of course it was, because it was the 13th, and she said it, and then it turned into a thing that looks like a goat but has horse's hooves and wings. If you Google image, it's not a very scary. All the artist renditions are not scary at all. Mm-hmm. And then it was just this big thing where a bunch of newspapers, people are like, "Oh yeah, I saw the Jersey Devil in my farm." And,
that's a very good 1800s Jersey accent there.
Practice it all the time.
If you want to learn more about cryptozoology in the Northwest, I did a whole episode about Bigfoot. So if you're interested in checking that out, you can check that out. Sure. But anyway, none of this has any bearing on what the story. No, this is great.
I just people in the 1800s.
No, I'm fascinated by folklore and things like that. That's so interesting. And I don't know much about the Jersey Devil. I have some friends from New Jersey that have mentioned stuff about that. But yeah. So John Turnow continued to spend more time in the woods, made as infrequent as visits to civilization as possible, and he wouldn't go into a building unless it had a high roof, and even then spent as little as time as he could in it. So he just didn't like to be inside, he didn't like to be confined. Okay. He wanted to be outside, he wanted to be out in the wilderness.
Would he double check that there was roof access too?
If there was
he would walk in and be like, "All right, so you guys got a high roof. Can I go in?"
I think these are shacks. Okay. These are small enclosed areas, not high rises where you have a barbecue up there. One of Tornow's sisters, Minnie, got married and had children, and her husband, Henry Bower, was an ill-tempered man who didn't get along with the Turnow family. When John's father Fritz died in 1909, Minnie, Henry, and their 4 children, including their twins, John and William, moved into the Turnow house. So, sister gets married to a guy who's kind of a jerk, they have a bunch of kids, and then they move into the Turnow homestead. Sure. John Turnow, at this point, had made permanent residence in the woods. Okay. No one was quite sure where he was living out there, but he would leave for weeks at a time, occasionally coming back to visit his sister and her husband, but never his brother, who he blamed for his commitment. Or at least had some kind of outs with his brother.
How old is he at this time?
He's about 30.
Oh, wow.
He's about 29, 30, yeah. On these visits, he would instruct his twin nephews on how to live off the land and make their way alone in the forest. On one of his long absences, his brother Ed shot his dog Cougar. No. Saying that Cougar was a hunting dog and there was no more use for him since he was too old to hunt. John was distraught, flew into a rage, and to have his revenge, he shot Ed's dog Rex. So they kill each other's dogs. Okay. There's conflicting sources on this. Some people say that this occurred much earlier, and some people say this occurred when he was about 10. Some people said it occurred when he was in his late 20s, but it definitely happened.
That doesn't make sense of why he would say the dog has no use, because doesn't he use the dog to help him live off the land?
Well, the dog is now staying at the house, and the dog is old. The dog is not a hunting dog, or he was a hunting dog, but now the dog is elderly, and the dog is more of a companion than a work dog. Sure. Yeah, okay. I was going to say a functional dog, but that's not really accurate.
Yeah. He works as a dog.
He works as he does
basically useless.
He has one job as a dog. He doesn't have any secondary dog duties. On August 11th, 1911, Ed Turnow paid a visit to Sheriff Mark Payette. He wanted assistance in getting John committed or arrested for shooting the dog, but Sheriff did not see just cause to do either. John Turnow disappeared into the forest for months, occasionally making an appearance here and there to trade game he hunted for flour and salt with other homesteaders around the area. Loggers began circulating stories about seeing a giant with a long beard stalking through the woods. They would look up and see him standing a few feet away before stealthily retreating into the trees. Upon one who encountered him and tried to speak with him, John allegedly said, quote, "Tell everyone none of them better come out here to get me. I'll kill anyone who comes after me. These are my woods."
Oh my god.
So he's reclusive.
This is the start of an amazing action film.
Oh yeah. It seriously is. Yeah. This is like The First Blood where
I was going to say, it's like new Rambo.
Yeah.
Get out of my woods.
Yeah, but he just wants to be left alone. He wants to be out in the woods. He doesn't want anybody to deal. He's completely removed himself from society at this point. Mm-hmm. And they see him with this. That'd be freaky as hell to see a guy with a long beard just emerge out of the woods, say, "I'll kill anyone who follows me," and turns around.
So it's not unlawful for him to be in these woods, right? Since technically his family owns them?
No, well, they own these 320 acres.
Okay.
But he's all over the peninsula.
Okay, so he's not necessarily staying till
Yeah. So it's legal for him to be there. I mean, he's not really breaking any laws.
Okay.
I mean, nowadays I believe it would be illegal to go and hunt and live off the land. You'd need permits and things like that. But yeah, then he's just a guy who wants to live in the woods.
And not be bothered.
Not be bothered, yeah. We can all relate to that.
Oh, yeah. Every day.
He started to get a mythic status among the inhabitants of the peninsula. He received nicknames such as the Cougar Man, Mad Daniel Boone, and the Wild Man of the Wynoochee.
That last one's the best one.
It's a solid one. That's the one. That's the one that's stuck.
That's
over
the title
years.
of the movie.
Yeah, that's also going to be the title of this podcast.
Nice,
so, yeah.
Perfect.
Wild Man of the Wynoochee.
Oh, so good.
September 1911, John and William Bower, John Turnow's 19-year-old nephews, ventured into the woods, allegedly to hunt a bear that had killed one of their cows recently. So these are the twin nephews he had that he'd been teaching how to live off the land. It is unknown exactly what happened, but 2 days later, the boys were found dead, each shot once clean through the heart.
Okay, so the bear didn't do it.
The bear didn't do it unless the bear got a rifle, took lessons, learned how to shoot, adjusted for wind, and shot them through the heart.
Became a dead shot bear.
He would have to be smarter than the average bear. Some believe that they were shot due to confusion. They believe that the twins came upon a bear feeding on a steer, and surprised to see it so close, they began firing on the bear because it was right there in front of them. John Turnow, who was nearby, thought they were firing at him and shot them in self-defense. They believe the undergrowth was too thick for him to see who he was firing at, but not too thick to hit them.
Okay. So
that's one
theory.
theory.
Like vague outlines of bodies.
Yeah, he could see people. He thought the people were shooting at him, and so he shot back, and then realized these are my cousins, or these are my nephews. But the prevailing theory, the one that most people believe is true, is that Turnow shot them in self-defense, because William and John had ventured into the woods with the specific aim in mind of killing him. So they think that the twins were hunting Turnow.
Okay.
They felt he was a danger to their family, and it was only a matter of time before their insane uncle paid a call on them and did them or their family harm.
Okay, so I'm guessing like when he first taught them to live off the land, they were young, and then this is years later where they've grown up and they're like, oh, by the way, crazy forest man is
they're
in
19,
danger.
yeah. And if the dog incident did occur just recently, and their family's trying to get them committed, and they're like, oh my god, this is... And Henry Bower and their father and John Turnow are not on good terms at all, and so they're like, okay, well, we're going to go take care of this. We're going to settle this once and for all, and then we'll be safe.
Okay.
When the boys were discovered dead, John Turnow was not the prime suspect initially. Ed Turnow was no friend to Henry Bower, the boy's father. He took his daughter to Aberdeen to have an abortion that was botched and resulted in her death. Ooh. So he took his niece to Aberdeen to get the abortion, and she died getting the abortion.
That sucks.
Oh, it's horrible. Horrible. Henry blamed him and thought Ed killed the boys in revenge for their kind of dispute. So this is not the Brady Bunch.
Yeah,
this is whenever I start reading about families, I'm like, I bet they're fine. And then you dig deeper and you're like, oh no. Boy, no. So Ed Turnow was the initial suspect. Henry Bower was also a suspect because he always was suspect of the boy's paternity. He thought his wife had cheated on him and that it was actually somebody else's children and not his.
Interesting.
Plus, he and Minnie would receive the family property or John would receive the property as the oldest living heir, or he had received the property of the Turnow family. So he owned that 320 acres of land, even though he wasn't living on it, he was out in the woods. If he died or if he was sent to an institution, then they would get the property. So it might have been something like that. So if Henry killed the boys and blamed John, then
John gets in trouble.
Then John gets in trouble. Yeah. Also, if the boys go and kill John,
he's gone.
Then he's gone, and they get the property as long as they don't get caught.
So he would be double because he could just tell them, "Go kill this dude," and then whatever the outcome is, he wins.
Yeah, exactly. So Henry is one of the main suspects. But this was settled shortly after when Henry went to the woods looking for John and was never seen or heard from again.
Oh, okay. So he got killed in the worst way.
He got killed. Yeah, he was almost certainly killed by John as well. But we don't know because they never found his body.
Ooh, so John did a very good job.
Yes. Yes, that's one way of looking at it. You're Team John.
I mean,
yeah.
Hey, he all he said was "Don't leave me alone," right? He was just like, or "Do leave me alone. Don't bother me. I'm just chill in the woods." He laid it all out on the table. He was like, "Look, you come in here, you're gonna die."
Yeah.
I'm Wilderness Rambo.
I'm just going to start firing my gun in this direction, and if anybody gets in the way...
I've been a dead-eye shot since age 12.
Yeah.
Don't fuck with me.
Yeah.
I'm John Turnow.
Posses were put together and ventured into the woods on a manhunt, but they found his temporary shelters and nothing more. They couldn't find him. Okay. Loggers and hunters stopped what they were doing and left the woods because it became too dangerous at this point. This guy's just going around killing people. They're like, I will log next season, but for now, maybe I'll be a fisherman for a while. There were sightings of him all over western Washington. Some say they saw him on Mount Olympus.
Oh, wow.
Some saw him in Olympia, then Pacific Beach, then Chehalis, Port Angeles, and Elma. And these places are, if you don't know the area, super disparate. They're all over the place. They are not, they allegedly somebody saw him in Olympia one day and then Mount Olympus the next day, and those are hundreds of miles apart. Sure. There's no way. But the people are just constantly, whenever they see a guy with long hair, they're like, oh my God, this must be the guy. Yeah. Two loggers who did remain on the job were camping when Turnow approached them and said he was the main suspect in the twins' murder, but denied committing the crime. Okay. So he said, I know they're hunting me because these kids died, but I did not kill them. So, February 1912, trappers found an elk carcass and thought it was an indicator that Turnow was in the area. Law enforcement continued the hunt and occasionally found food or an extinguished campfire, but not John Turnow himself. So they were unable to find him. Yeah. January 1913, Shell Matthew ran for sheriff on the platform that he would bring Turnow and was elected. So he said, I will bring him in, elect me, and they elected.
This is such an action movie.
It seriously is, yeah. A few months later, Sheriff Matthew was on a train coming back from Tacoma when a real estate developer from Hoquiam told him that he had been deep in the forest and passed a small cabin near a lake in the middle of nowhere. So he's saying it was in the middle of nowhere, just out there in deep in the woods, and I saw a small cabin on a lake. He passed by it and quickly left because anyone who was living that far out didn't want to be found. So it's a total coincidence that he's the sheriff is on a train next to this guy who says, I accidentally stumbled upon this cabin. Yeah.
Either this dude wants the sheriff dead.
Oh, interesting. Right? I hadn't thought about that.
Either this dude knows what's up, wants the sheriff dead. Somehow, John Turnow gave this guy a bountiful harvest of fine meats and said, "Get the sheriff here." Or John was like, "If I'm hidden, but not hidden enough, someone will see." He left just enough breadcrumbs to murder the sheriff.
Well, I'm picturing the fine meats come into my cabin, and there's dead frogs that have been turned into candles, and a thing would you like some sweet meat?
Bring me the sheriff.
Whining and dining.
Drop this hint. Oh my God.
Deputy Colin McKenzie and a game warden, A.V. Elmer, went to investigate along with the bloodhound. A few days later, the bloodhound returned to camp without the two men. 2 weeks later, their bodies were found, shot between the eyes, stripped naked, and buried in a shallow grave.
Woof.
Yeah.
Definitely John Turnow.
Definitely John, yeah. The bodies were discovered near Turnow's camp by the headwaters of the Wynoochee.
Okay.
So they found a small camp, and it's clear that they came upon him. He said, nope, and shot both of them.
Wow.
Yeah. Now a $3,000 reward was being offered for John Turnow, dead or alive.
What year is this?
This is 1913.
So inflation...
Multiply it by about 25, maybe?
Okay, that's better now.
So 75,000, somewhere along in there?
That's about right.
Yeah.
I was going to say, 3,000 for this dude that's potentially murdered 5 people.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Maybe an even 100,000 today. Yeah, it's a lot of money back then. So, dead or alive, $3,000 reward. Trappers Louis Blair and Charles Lathrop did everything they could to track him. Turnow knew he was being pursued and was content to simply outmaneuver his trackers, because he knows the woods, he knows what he's doing. But eventually he became frustrated and angered that they weren't letting up, and according to the Seattle Times, quote, the persistency with which Blair hung onto his trail angered him. And finally, being convinced the latter was after him, the outlaw awaited the final moment to put the two most fearless enemies out of his way.
So he tried to basically just run away from these dudes. They were too good, and then he was like, screw it.
Because basically, the entire time he's just been like, all right, I can just avoid you guys, I can go into the woods, I can hang out, you're not going to find me, I know the woods too well. But now he's like, okay, I need to face this head
Battle
on,
time.
and then we'll put it behind me once I kill these guys.
Yes.
April 16th, 1913, Blair, Lathrop, and Deputy Sheriff Quimby, accompanied by bloodhounds, tracked Turnow through the snow deep into the forest. They approached a small lake surrounded by a swamp and saw a small lean-to with smoke coming out of it.
Okay.
Quimby wanted to head back and collect more men, but Blair and Lathrop knew it was now or never. Plus, they had no desire to split the reward money any more ways.
How do they know it's now or never, though? Just that he would move?
He would move, okay, yeah. He's not going to stay in one place for very long. He might already know that they're there.
True.
And then he'll flee. And they don't want to... if they bring back 10 people, then you're going to split the reward money 10 different ways, and they just want to split a third each. Mm-hmm. They knew he was close by and wanted to spot him before he spotted them, but it was already too late.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So he got him from long range?
He knew that they were there. Uh-huh. Turnow had used a native trick. He tethered frogs at a distance from his shelter. He used elk hair to tie the frogs in place, tied them to logs or trees, and the frogs would stop croaking when people approached.
Oh.
So he had a warning system set in place. If anyone approached before they arrived, he knew they were coming.
So he's got freaking wilderness simply safe.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got the frogs on his side.
That's dope.
Yeah. So it's an old Native American trick, apparently.
That's super cool.
I'd never heard of it before.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you use elk hair to tether the frogs, because if you hear frogs, you hear them off in the distance. But if you approach, they'll actually stop croaking because they don't want predators to find them. Because they're trying to communicate with each other. And yeah, it's fascinating that works. But yeah, so the frogs stopped croaking. He knew that they were coming by. Uh-huh. He got into position. The three moved as quietly as they could, surrounding the shelter, waiting to strike. And as they were doing that, a shot rang out and Blair collapsed to the ground. Damn. Turnow was 6 feet away from him.
Oh, so actually pretty close.
Very close.
They had no idea.
They had no idea. He was hiding behind a hemlock tree where he fired the shot.
Whoa.
So he was right there the entire time, but he was blending in. They didn't see him. He shot
good.
Blair.
But also, where's he getting his guns and ammo?
He's trading with people. He probably has a pretty good stock coming in that he's schlepping around.
Like a ton, and then he doesn't need to use them that often.
Yeah, and he's going out and he's trading because he's hunting elk, and so he'll hunt elk, smoke the meat, go out, and then find homesteaders and things like that. And a lot of people are sympathetic to him.
Okay.
Because people are out there, they want to live outside of regular society. Mm-hmm. They don't want government infringing upon them. They don't want to, they don't want to have to, pay taxes, and they're living off the grid.
So they're also Team John Turnow.
They're Team John Turnow, yeah. And they're saying, hey, this guy's living off the grid, now he's being pursued.
And
we don't think he did, but if he...
elk jerky in town.
Exactly.
Of course I'm going to give him some bullets.
He gave me some sweet meats.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So 6 feet away kills the one dude.
6 feet away kills Blair. Lathrop was slightly farther and shot back, but missed, and Turnow shot him in the neck before he could get up another round. Not a good way to go. Not a good way to go.
Ow.
Yeah.
Sounds like the worst.
Do you choke? Do you suffocate? Do you just, what is it?
Oh, no.
Lathrop was slightly farther back and missed, so Turnow shot him in the neck. Quimby was the farthest away and fired 7 times at what he would later describe as, quote, large bearded head more gorilla than human. Whoa. He took shelter behind a log as Turnow fired back, and then the woods fell silent. So he's sitting behind this log. What the fuck is going on right now? Quimby wasn't sure if he had fatally wounded Turnow, or if he was just waiting for him to get up so he could shoot him. Mm-hmm. He knew Turnow was an incredible shot, and if he so much as peeked his head over the log, it would be all over. So Quimby waited, and waited, but opted not to get up and investigate.
Yeah,
instead, he ran in the opposite direction.
Smart. I like Quimby.
18 miles to civilization.
Not far enough. Go the full marathon.
Seriously. 18 miles. Don't turn around. Just go. Dude. Yeah. The next day, a posse arrived and found Turnow dead.
Oh, so he did hit him with
He did hit him in a sitting position, propped up against the hemlock he had taken shelter behind. Damn. So he did fatally shoot Turnow.
So does he get all the money, or does the posse get it?
He would get the money.
Oh.
I believe he would get the money, because he's the only one that survived.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't...
No, but I'm saying, like, these guys that then found him dead.
Oh!
Did he have to split it with them?
Interesting. I don't know. Bullshit. I'm not sure.
Because he did all the work.
Yeah.
Killed Forrest Rambo.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't get all the money.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the division on that would be. But I do think, regardless of if he made the money or not, he made the right decision.
Oh,
Turn
for
around,
sure.
run.
For sure.
Run away.
Because if this was an action movie, he would have turned up and been like, looked around, and then just as John Turnow has a, makeshift thing that looks like his body, he'd pop around, say a dope line. And
drop from the tree.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Looks like you shouldn't have come into the woods. And then game over.
My frogs knew you were going to croak.
Yes.
Oh, God. He was wearing the clothes he had taken from his victims, all of them. He was wearing 6 shirts and 5 pairs of pants.
So he would kill the people and then wear their clothes?
And then take their clothes,
That's some baller shit.
That's crazy.
That's so good, though. It's like it's like the human version of like getting the heads of the things you want.
Yeah!
It's like, I got this sock from Jimmy.
That's some creepy serial killer stuff, though. Like, these are my trophies from...
But also, he probably doesn't have a lot of clothes out there, so he really could use
probably
the
just to stay
material as a
warm.
resource.
Yeah, I mean, it's snowy out there. So he's probably wearing all of these clothes.
He's doing it just for functional purposes, but I'm over here like, oh, what a badass.
Yeah. And he probably doesn't have a lot of, like, great luggage and backpacks and things like that to carry the clothes around. They found no food and concluded he subsisted entirely on elk meat and frogs.
Wow.
Yeah. His brother Fred said, quote, "I am glad John is dead. It was the best way now that it is over, and I would rather see him killed outright than linger in a prison cell." Which is a weird sentiment. Yeah.
I guess, but...
Could you imagine, though, being severely agoraphobic? Or, not agoraphobic, claustrophobic.
Sure.
And being confined in a prison cell? Because
he would go insane.
He didn't even want to enter into a building.
Yeah.
So being trapped in a prison cell would have driven him insane.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
At his death, he had $1,700 in the bank and real estate in Aberdeen. So he was a man of means, but he was just choosing to live out in the woods. Deputy Giles Quimby attempted to go on the vaudeville circuit to tell his story of gunning down the wild man, but was never able to find a taker.
What?
Yeah.
Wait.
He was saying, I'll go on the vaudeville and I've got this great 15-minute story. Just let me go from town to town telling this story. And people said, nah, we don't want that.
What the? I feel like he would be like Washington's greatest hero for killing this dude, right?
You think so?
Well, so is it just because people in other towns far away didn't care? Because it seemed like if he's got that much money out for his head, you would think that, I don't know. I feel like he would be more... I don't know. Feel like the villain, or quote, John Turnow seems to be very well known at this point, or is it just so local that
I think it's probably local. I don't know how nationally he would have been known at this point, because it might have been this kind of situation where he would have to go into a town, explain the whole story of this guy, then tell the story about how he hunted him down, and it would get kind of watered down. But if everybody in the nation already knew who John Turnow was, then it would have been a big thing.
And it is like 1920, so I guess news didn't really spread of stuff like that. Because it's not like Zodiac Killer or something, which it's in the 70s or whatever, and people are finding out all over the place. It's not going to necessarily circulate that there's this dude in the woods being creepy and murking everyone.
Yeah, I don't know if it was big enough to become a national story. It might have been like a blurb in national papers or something, but
not enough.
Not enough to make Deputy Giles Quimby vaudeville circuit star with his tales of shooting a man, eating frogs,
and then running 18 miles away. Like the hero he is.
Probably would have omitted that from it. And then I ran away, and I got 10 guys to help me. Quimby said, quote, "The most horrible face I ever saw. The shaggy beard and long hair out of which gleamed 2 shining murderous eyes haunts me now. I could only see his face as he uncovered himself to fire a shot, and all the hatred that could fire the soul of a human being was evident." Part of his vaudeville story that never got picked up.
I was going to say, he's really trying to sell this here.
Yeah. Tornow's brother attempted to stop a public viewing of his body, but 250 people showed up at the Montesano morgue and nearly broke the doors down, demanding to get a look at the dead wild man.
I don't blame either of the parties. I don't blame the brother for wanting to stop it, and I also don't blame the 250 people to be like, what does this dude look like? Definitely. So maybe it was a larger story, because the 250 people show up just to see the body. Coroner R.F. Hunter reluctantly agreed to let people see the corpse. According to Morning Oregon, quote, "Fully 650 people passed through the room where the gaunt figure lay within a space of 30 minutes.
30 deputy sheriffs forced the crowd to move in single file and prevented, by force, tearing off bits of the ragged clothing from the corpse, cutting off locks of hair or whiskers, or cutting off pieces from the table where the cadaver lay.
Okay. Not as big fan of these people anymore.
No, they're ridiculous. Kind of assholes.
And also, this would never fly, ever.
Not today.
Yeah,
no.
I mean,
people trying to I'm going to take a bit of his shirt. But he's wearing 6 shirts.
So they could pass it around. But even viewing a dead body, they're like, that's not a thing, right?
No, that's not today. Somebody has to identify the body and, but I couldn't imagine having this outlaw, we're going to all view his corpse.
Look and see what
but this is the Wild West still. This
True.
is 1911 out on the peninsula, or 1913 out on the peninsula. And this is, this is not a civilized land. This is an incredibly violent time, an incredibly violent era. So, human life was not worth as much, and people wanted the entertainment of going and seeing the dead wild man and trying to take a piece of his shirt or hair as a souvenir.
Also probably a terrible souvenir. Probably smells atrocious.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I would imagine. I don't think he's out there taking, showers and enjoying bath bombs or anything like that. In the years after his death, John Turnow has become something of a folk hero. In 1987, a special monument was put on his grave that reads, "From loner to outcast to fugitive, John Turnow, September 4th, 1880 to April 16th, 1913. So now enough time has passed that he's kind of viewed as this, outlaw hero wild man.
As he should be, because he tried not to do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Granted, he probably didn't need to kill people when they came towards him, but he did lay it out and say, yo.
Yeah. he was clearly antisocial, paranoid, but probably didn't need to kill anybody, but people were gunning for him. People were looking for him, and we're not sure if he killed people in self-defense or what was going on, but he was just really living outside the law, and the law came and he said, no, I'm not going, and fired back.
Definitely.
Yeah.
He really is Rambo.
Yeah, he really is. Living up, I'm picturing with a big knife too, a big Bowie knife, and
of course.
Skinning the elk and making shoes out of bark,
and then tying frogs to trees.
Yeah, God, what a brilliant idea.
That's absurd, but that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's super cool. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel bad for the frogs because they're just stuck.
Well,
they can't move, right?
You're probably bringing them back later to eat them too. After a while, so
even better.
Yeah, you're gonna work for me, and then I'm gonna eat you. That is a functional frog,
there it is.
There. Yeah.
Oh man,
awesome! So thank you so much for listening to the Seattle Files. Thank you, Mike, for being here.
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for educating. This was super cool.
Awesome!
I had no idea this was a thing. I'm surprised that this isn't a movie or at least some sort of part of a mini series about cool shit. I don't know.
This would make a cool movie. This would a guy stalking through the woods, getting hunted by the law, tying frogs to trees.
And no one knows the details of the fight, so they can make them as blockbuster as they want, and they can be like, well, there's no evidence saying otherwise, and they still get that based on a true story.
Based on a true story, yeah. Well, even if we stick to the facts as much as we can, it's still a really interesting, this fucked up family, and they're killing each other and killing each other's dogs, and and then hunting each other through the wilderness of the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. I think it should be a movie right now.
Yeah.
Movie producers.
Movie producers, if you're listening, then get on this. Get on this. You heard it here first, so we get a cut.
Of course,
but make this movie.
Please do.
I'm picturing, let's see here. I'm picturing Michael Shannon.
Okay.
As the wild man of the Wynoochee. I think that he could play anything. He's one of my favorite actors.
Definitely, he's always Paul Giamatti as evil, one of the bad.
As Quimby.
Yes, he could be Quimby, or he could be mean uncle or something. I feel like he's just a bad guy in every movie.
As what was his name? Henry Bauer.
He could be
Henry Bauer, the ill-tempered brother-in-law.
Yeah,
absolutely. Sure. The twins would be the two twins, the one guy that played the twins in The Social Network.
Oh yes,
one person playing.
Yeah, because they want to be all bravado that they're going to hunt this dude.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool, we got it. We got a picture. We got a picture.
Casting directors, we're here. Yeah. We're ready. We'll have cameo roles. I'll be guy who claimed to see him number 6.
Yeah,
I saw him in Mount Olympus.
And I'll be the guy on the train that gets cut from the story because we don't need it.
I'm sorry, Chris. We're really sorry. But
do I still get paid?
You'll get your royalties, but you'll be in the credits.
Cool. That's all I ask. Be sure to check out Potterless, which is available anywhere podcasts are downloadable. Get your bi-weekly Harry Potter fix. If you have a topic suggestion you'd like to hear an episode about, shoot me an email at theseattlefiles@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook, subscribe and rate in iTunes. And to support the Seattle Files, go to patreon.com/theseattlefiles. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday with a new episode. Day 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 with a new episode.